Thanks, Dr. Cordero. I love extra credit. This room is so packed. This is just awesome. This is just great, because otherwise it'd be like me and Dr. Cordero in here, just sharing stress stories or something. What I want to talk to you guys about today is stress, anxiety, depression, but specifically in college life, right? And part of the message that I really want you to take away, there's a few main points that I want you to walk away from. You don't have to remember my name. You can be like, yeah, some dude said this. Doesn't matter to me. But I want you to remember that whatever you're struggling with, you're not alone. Maybe you've heard that message before, but I'm going to try to prove that to you today. I want you to actually see that you're not alone with whatever it is you're struggling with. And I want you to know that we as faculty and staff and administrators here at the university actually get it. We do understand. We know how tough this is. Partly because we did this once before, partly because some of us, myself included, have college kids who are going through the very same things you guys are going through right now, and partly because we've been here a long time. This is my 15th year teaching at PLNU and investing in the lives of students and paying attention to what's going on in the lives of students and asking a lot of questions what's going on in the lives of students, and we get it. We really do understand. We understand also that we're largely to blame for the stress in your lives right now, right? We're just going to take responsibility for that. We've got a system that takes a ton of work and a ton of learning and jams it into 4 years. And it's just the way higher education works. And it's a very, very stressful time for you guys. We also understand that the rest of life doesn't stop, right? It's not like what's going on at home is put on hold for the next 4 years, that you can just focus on the stressful things here. So not only do you have midterms and papers and you're worried about grades, rightfully so, and many of you have plans after college that require that you be successful while you're here. Some of you have scholarships that have GPA requirements. There's all these pressures that we put on you academically, and things back at home, things in the rest of the world are still going on. Right? And so we understand that. We know that we call it a bubble. We know it's not really a bubble. We know that what's happening here is a very important and demanding part of your lives, but we also know you have other things going on in life too. So the message I want to give you is, you're not alone in this. There are a lot of students struggling. There are also a lot of faculty, staff, administrators who are doing our very best to keep balance in life, and some of us are not necessarily winning that battle. And that there's help to be found too. That's a real important part to this, is that you're not alone and you don't have to live life completely mired down and bogged down in the struggles that you're dealing with. Does that make sense? So watching my daughter head off to college, I came to this realization that we oversell it in a lot of ways as a culture, right? We get things all stirred up emotionally. Oh, college is going to be the best 4 years of your life, and you're going to make so many awesome friends and all these great lifelong memories. And I even heard one guy say to some students, oh, it doesn't get any better than this. And all I'm thinking is, oh, I got to undo all the damage he just did, because these students are right in the middle of midterms right now, and they're thinking, if it doesn't get any better than this, what is the point? Because this is brutal, right? I mean, aren't there times in college, maybe years, where you're like, wow, I can't wait to get out of here and get into the next stage of life, because this is kicking my butt. This is really hard work, isn't it? And then people, very well-meaning people would say things to my daughter like, oh, I met my husband in college. You're just going to love it. No pressure, right? The poor kid's like, I just want to learn how to, find my classes right now. I don't want to be thinking about a husband, for crying out loud. So we as parents and as a culture really, in a sense, almost oversell this experience. We know this experience can be really hard. And we want you to understand that we get it, and that you have every right to talk about it, to share your struggles, to bring these things up with one another, with us, and there's a variety of other ways you can get some support when you guys are struggling. So I mentioned that it's really, I know I'm talking primarily to students here, but I want you to understand that struggling with your mental and emotional health, right? Keeping a grip on things when life feels overwhelming is not just a college issue. It's not just a young person transitioning into adulthood issue. So I mentioned that I'm in my 15th year here. After I finished year 10, I just completely burnt out. And I didn't realize that I'd burnt out. I didn't know, I wasn't aware of it. I don't have good self-awareness. It's one of the things I'm learning about myself, right? I'm not really good at paying attention to where I'm at. And I didn't realize just how burnt out I had gotten. And the summer after my 10th year here, I just sort of broke, right? And for me, it was my physical health. I got sick. I mean, you guys ever go home like on Christmas break or summer break and you get sick? I got sick and I thought, oh, okay, no big deal. It's probably just a virus. We'll let it go. Week into it, and things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. I'm not feeling well at all. I go to the doctor, they run tests, you're fine, probably just a virus, wait it out. A couple weeks after that, things are just going downhill instead of up. It's like, we got to figure out what's going on because I'm getting weaker and more tired and body aches and just no appetite whatsoever and nausea and just everything. Like, man, this is not going the right direction. We're a few weeks into this. Go to the doctor again, and it's like, we need to see some specialists and figure out what's happening. And it turned out the role of the specialist more than anything was to rule out, kind of the scary possibilities, right? So I went to oncology, and we ruled out a brain tumor. And, you go to gastroenterology, and they rule out any sort of serious abdominal diseases. And you go to endocrinology, and they rule out any major hormone-related diseases or dysfunctions, right? And so you'd think when an oncologist tells you, hey, your brain is cancer-free, you'd be like, woohoo. And part of me was like, yeah, woohoo. And part of me was like, yeah, but what is going on, right? Still left us with no answers, and I was getting increasingly sick during this time. So after 2 months of this, and I was really miserable at this point, I called the university and said, I just got to back off for a little bit and figure this out. So I took a semester break. Took a medical leave of absence, we call it. And during that time, one of the physicians, one of the specialists that was seeing me, it was almost like an offhand comment. He said, I've seen time and time again these same symptoms in people dealing with chronic stress. I thought, chronic stress? What are you talking about? Dr. Cordero told you I'm a microbiologist. I could have told you exactly which infections I had. I had it worked out, right? A little bit of knowledge gets you in trouble, right? I don't see patients. And so, that's dangerous to start self-diagnosing, but boy, I was doing it. And the real doctors must have just hated me because I was like, it's got to be this. What do you mean your test says no? Let's do it again. I had one clinic redo tests twice, so we did a test 3 times because I was absolutely convinced of a particular infection that I had. Turned out that wasn't it, right? So here I am thinking that it's something biological. I'm a biologist. In fact, I'm an infectious disease specialist. I'm absolutely convinced that's what it is because that's what all the signs and symptoms are pointing to. And I got this medical doctor saying to me, I've seen these same symptoms in chronic stress. Now, what I was thinking, what I was hearing in my head was he was saying, it's all in your head, get over it. But that's not at all what he was saying. He was saying that your head is really, really powerful and can actually manufacture very, very real symptoms of illness when your head isn't right. And so I, not too willingly, checked into psychology, psychiatry, whatever the department's called, and they did evaluation and workup, and it wasn't hard for them to diagnose me with generalized anxiety disorder and depression due to chronic stress. It's like, okay, wow, well, that's not what I expected. That wasn't what I saw coming. Again, not very self-aware, right? Still working on that one. That's going to be a lifelong battle for me. I didn't see it. Reflecting, I can see it. I can see the stress that I was letting build up. And I wasn't really processing it. It was always like, next semester is going to be better. If I can get through this week, you ever say that? If I can get through this week, life is going to get so much better. And then is the next week better? Maybe. Is the next semester better? Maybe. But reality is we keep putting off our health, saying, I'm just going to buckle down and push through, and things are going to be better. And reality is life is hard. And reality is college life, both for students and for those of us trying to teach you guys, is a very demanding business that we're in, okay? It takes a whole lot for us to be able to keep this up for very long. And so rather than pushing things off, I'm having to learn how to find balance now, how to say no now, how to prioritize now, how to take better care of myself, right? Learn self-care skills. Sometimes in the Christian church, we get this impression that self-care is selfish, and it's not. It really isn't. And you can see great examples of that in Scripture. When Jesus was overwhelmed with the crowds, what did he do? He'd retreat. He'd pull back so that he wouldn't be so overwhelmed, so he could handle it. He needed to rest often, right? You ever heard of something called the Sabbath? It's like we've put it on hold for 4 years through college. We can't do that, right? We've got to follow God's wisdom for rest and a rhythm of rest in our lives. And that's a big part of what I'm learning how to do at this stage. One of the big things that I learned, so when I got my diagnosis, okay, so that's what's going on. Well, at least we have a diagnosis. It's not what I expected. It's not biological or medical in origin. It's psychiatric in origin. And at least now we have some steps to move forward. My first thought was, great, get me on some medication and let's fix this thing. I got to get back to work next week. And they're like, okay, slow down here, buddy, right? It's taken you years to kind of turn your brain into scrambled eggs here. It's going to take years to unscramble them. It's going to take time. Slow down. Let's do this right. Yes, medication may be part of the story, but talk therapy is going to be part of the story. And other self-care strategies like exercise is going to be part of the story. And group exercises where we're going to figure out how to stop lying to ourselves all the time. We could spend a whole hour right now just talking about the ways that we sort of spin ourselves up with half-truths and total untruths, and ways to call those out and challenge them with actual truth. So many things that have gotten kind of scrambled and tangled up that need to be slowly but surely untangled. So when I came back to campus, I was very open about my struggles and what's going on. I mean, it's kind of hard to hide when you just missed a semester and you come back and people say, oh, where were you? Okay, so I can either lie about it or I can tell people what's going on. And the more I shared my story, the more I found both from students and from my colleagues here at the university that a lot of us are right on the edge. We're just like, whoa, one more thing and I am over the edge. It's going to break me. It's going to tip me over. And I decided, you know what, this isn't right and it doesn't have to be like this. And so as I've been learning how to take better care of myself, I've been intentionally trying to share that message with other people, with students, right? I've got 3 groups of people in my world. You guys are a huge part of my world, a huge part of my thinking and planning and strategizing. So much of what I do is about helping you guys transition to this next stage of life. My colleagues at the university as well, and then the church, because I've found that as I've opened up with the church, there's a lot more struggle going on in the Christian church than I ever knew. And there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And so I'm doing what I can to be something of a catalyst of that. But one of the things that I learned was that I wasn't alone. I really felt like I was alone. Maybe you felt this way. I looked around and all my colleagues were handling it just fine, as far as I could tell. Everybody was super happy all the time and having a great time, and everybody was keeping up with their workload just fine, and there were no issues, right? Everybody was balancing life and work just fine. You ever feel that way? You look around, you're like, man, I am just right on the brink of breaking, and everybody around me is having the time of their life. Well, one of the things I learned is that they're not having the time of their life. They're just hiding it well. Because in our culture, we've stigmatized mental and emotional health struggles, and so we don't want to talk about them. We're ashamed of them, as if somehow we're broken beyond repair. And the reality is that's not true. That's not true at all. Take a look at this, if I can get my clicker to work. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work for me. I may just have to click up here. Or maybe we just look at the same slide the whole time. I don't know. You got to love technology. It says no base, even though there's a base there. This won't work. Okay. Bear with me here. No stress. No stress. No anxiety. No depression. Okay. And no base. Okay. There we go. Let's just jump into this one right here, right? This is a definition of optimal mental health from the CDC, right? CDC oversees healthcare in the United States, a very influential organization. They say optimal mental health, right? The place you kind of want to be is a state of well-being in which the individual, that's you, realizes his or her own abilities. That doesn't mean like, oh, hey, I got this strength. It means you're actually seeing them come to fruition. Can cope with the normal stresses of life. And right now, the normal stresses of life are college life for you guys. It might seem extreme, but right now that is the norm for you guys. And are you coping well with it? Working productively and fruitfully and able to make a contribution to his or her community. How do you feel about that? Seem reasonable, like a reasonable way to define a goal? If we think about our mental and emotional health as a continuum, and at one end you've got optimal mental health, and at the other end you've got like really bad mental health, should be hospitalized, really need intervention seriously right now. Most of us are somewhere probably on this continuum. How many people do you think are, when they do their studies at the CDC, what percentage of the American population fits this at any given time? What's your guess? Just shout it out. What do you think?
7%.
7%. What else? We're just going with 7? Okay, hey, we're going with 7% apparently. Their studies show that 17% of American adults, they estimate, are kind of in the zone. So if the zone is way over here and things are going well, if you're doing great right now, that's awesome. That means you're in this 17%. Keep it up. Whatever you're doing, share it with others. The world needs more of you, right? But also understand that you may not always be in that top 17%. You may have some down times, and that's not the end of the world. But that also means that there's 83% of the American population that is somewhere else on that continuum. Suboptimal, less than optimal mental and emotional health. That means the vast majority of us are struggling. The stats show that just not on college campuses, but in general, we're looking at about 20% of the population at any given time is dealing with either anxiety or depression. 20%, 1 in 5. So next time you're sitting in church or chapel or walking through the grocery store, you look around and start counting. Right? Every 5th person, you probably can't pinpoint which one, right? But every 5th person in that room on average has significant struggles that are causing dysfunction in their life, causing things to not work the way they're supposed to work. That's pretty substantial, isn't it? And practically all of us have room to grow and room to improve in our mental and emotional health. Would you agree with that? It shouldn't surprise us, though. I'm going to try this one more time. Shouldn't surprise me when this doesn't work, is what it shouldn't surprise. But yeah, no base. Okay, I'm just going to stand here and click away. It shouldn't surprise us. Think about what Jesus said. This is one of my favorite scriptures. This is one of those promises nobody claims and puts on a t-shirt or a coffee mug, right? In this world, you will have trouble. It's like, woohoo, I love Jesus, right? In this world, you will have trouble. But he does say, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. He doesn't say, take heart, for you have overcome the world. But by uniting our lives to him, we're uniting our lives to the one who has overcome all of this. So there's great reason to be hopeful. And there's great reason to accept the fact that every single one of us is going to face trouble and struggles and trials. We're definitely not alone. And then 1 Peter, dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you. Boy, the next time you're sitting in an exam, you're like, this is a fiery ordeal, right? It's come on me to test me, to test my knowledge of microbiology. As though something strange were happening to you. Peter's like, duh. What do you mean? Why are you acting all indignant about the fact that you're having a hard time? This is part of life, right? And being a Christ follower doesn't wipe that away, doesn't magically make all that go away. Don't let anybody tell you that. Don't let anybody even imply that somehow if you're having struggles, it's because you're not praying enough, or you're not Christian enough, you're not worshiping enough, you don't have enough faith. Don't let anybody ever tell you that. Because Scripture is very clear that these struggles, both physical, touchable, tangible struggles are going to be real, and mental and emotional struggles are going to be very, very real as well as we go through life. So what I want to do now is I said I want to prove to you that, I'm going to have to get this thing working. I want to prove to you that you're not alone in this. And that's why I had you guys get clickers. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to make sure this thing's working because it hasn't been working. Let's see if we can get it working. I want you to take your clickers out. If you've got one of these borrowed clickers, that's great. It should say DB when you turn it on. If yours doesn't say DB or you have one that you brought with you, when you power it on, hold the power button down and you'll get little flashing brackets. Type in DB, like Dumbo, okay? DB, I couldn't think of anything, sorry. So type in DB. So if it's not working, turn it off. Turn it on again and hold it down as you turn it on. Okay, when you're powering it on, you have to hold it down. You get little flashing brackets. Type in DB. Check with somebody sitting next to you because somebody's having a hard time. Help each other out. What's up? What's it say? Okay. I have a backdoor way of fixing this. You just got to trust me. Okay, while I'm doing this, I have an assignment for you that I was going to give you that I was going to give you in a few minutes, but I'm going to give it to you right now. Here's what I want you to do. Talk to the person next to you and share with them a good, positive coping strategy that you have. Now I emphasize good and positive because there's some not so good coping strategies. Okay, so like baked goods are not a good coping strategy. Okay? Share a good coping strategy with one another. Starting the session. This. Settings. It's D5. DB. All right, let me gather your attention again. Let me bring everybody back for a minute. Just to follow up on the conversation I asked you to have, give me an example of something the person you were talking to said was a good coping strategy for dealing with stress for them. Somebody give me one. What do you got? Reaching out to others. There's so much evidence that finding support with other people makes you feel like they're actually bearing the burden with you. Super important. Give me another one. Exercise, that's one of the ones where there's such solid scientific evidence that shows that it doesn't just make you feel better about yourself, there are actual neurological changes that take place due to exercise that raise your resilience, your ability to just handle and tolerate the stressors. One more. Who's got one more? What do you got? Ride your Harley. Doing something that has nothing to do with whatever's stressing you out and gets you into your physical body. Working with your five senses, they call it grounding, is so valuable. Something like riding your Harley or playing guitar or piano or something that gets you into your physical five senses. For me, I go out to the garage and I make sawdust. I've got a shop out there. I don't even have to be building anything. Just turning on a power tool and cutting through wood helps me to defuse because I'm using my hands and my physical body. Good. We'll come back to this in a minute. I think I got this working again. So make sure you're on DB. If anybody's not, nudge the person next to you. Let's get everybody on DB frequency. And then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Here's what I want you to know about these questions in advance. Number one, even if you're using your own personal clicker, I don't have them tied to any roster of any kind. Okay, it's totally anonymous. It's not like you're going to click depressed and your student ID is going to flash up here. Okay, totally anonymous. Okay, and if you're even more worried that you want this to be super anonymous, when you click your answer, there's a little blue refresh button. Click that and it just clears the screen. Your answer still got received. And it just clears the screen. So you put D for depressed, I guess, and it just disappears from here so wandering eyes aren't going to see what you clicked. Agreed? The other thing, if you've never used clickers before, after you choose something, if my little timer is still going, you can choose something else and it just substitutes what you put in, right? Like you put A, nah, it's really B. Just go ahead and click B. It'll pull your A out and put your answer B in. And then we're going to see what the whole room looks like with a couple of these questions. Because I told you you're not alone in your mental and emotional health struggles. You're not alone dealing with stress or anxiety or depression. I want you to actually see what a random sample of students on the Point Loma campus looks like. Are we ready to try this? Okay, let's give this a try. First question, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you describe your stress levels right now? Doing just fine? Starting to feel it? Under some pressure? Stress is hitting me really hard? Or help? Okay, where are you at in that system? 66. I have no clue how many people are in the room. I have no idea. 72 at least. Now don't cheat and look at the next person's answer. They're not right. They got it wrong anyway. Okay. We'll go 5 more seconds, so make up your mind and click in. 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So 1 is doing just fine. 5 is a cry for help. Let's see where this room is right now. What do you see? What do you see? Stress, somebody says. Let me pull this up here so you can see it. Okay, we're skewed to the right pretty heavily, aren't we? There's 4 like Bob Marley dudes in here. It's all good. That's fine. God bless you. We need more people like you. There's a few of you that are just starting to feel it. Majority of you are in 3 and 4 categories. And let's be honest here. There are 4 of you in cries for help. Okay? That's significant. Like you're at the point where you simply don't feel like you can do it anymore. Right? So in a room this size, would we say 74? We've got 4 people that are at that deep of a struggle level, and the majority of us are in a 3 or a 4 halfway through the semester. And this is somewhat a simple random sample, not exactly, but this is just sort of a random swath of Point Loma people. Swath, you like that word? Anywhere from freshmen to super seniors and everything in between, right? And we're struggling halfway through the semester right now. Let's try another one. So that's our stress levels. Hope you're realizing you're not alone if you're stressed out right now. Let's try another one. Let's just switch the word stress for the word anxiety. Right? Scale of 1 to 5, how's your anxiety levels right now? Your fear, your worry, your concern. Anxiety sometimes shows up as a stomach ache, or not sleeping well, or sometimes it's like dry mouth, or even sweaty palms, or shaky hands. That feeling when you're taking Calm 100 and the prof makes you stand up there and give a speech and everybody's staring at you, and you think they're totally judging you, but all they're doing is thinking about their own speech they got to give. Like they don't even realize you're standing there. Okay, how's your anxiety level at this point in the semester? Okay, we must have lost a couple people. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. So not a care in the world, some minor worries, feeling anxious, nervous, feeling overwhelmed. That's an important word. Or literally in panic mode. Okay, we only got 1 Bob Marley now. Not a care in the world. Again, the majority is in this feeling anxious, nervous, or even overwhelmed. 22 people in this room. That's like a quarter of the room. Almost a third of the room, more than a quarter. I'm not a math student. Okay, a lot of you are in this overwhelmed category. Like that word rang true with you. That's a big chunk of this room. And there's 5 people who are feeling like they're just in panic mode. Like, how am I going to get through this week? You've all felt it at some point, haven't you? Right now, there's 5 people out of the 72 of you sitting here right now with clickers that are in that panic mode. Like the wheels are flying off the wagon, and we just have no clue how we're going to get through this week or next week or this semester. Still feel like you're alone? Let's try one more question, okay? Let's swap the word anxiety for your mood levels, right? Things like happy, sad, depressed, lonely, etc., right? Always happy, maybe 50-50. Would you use the word depressed to talk about where you're at right now? Would you use the word hopeless to talk about where you're at and how you're feeling about things right now? Remember, totally anonymous here. So just be honest so we can get a sense of this space and what's going on amongst us. Okay, I'll give you 5 more seconds on this. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, 73. Somebody joined us. That's nice. Okay, a little bit shifted to the left compared to stress and anxiety. Most of you, the largest percentage of you, are in the 50-50 spot. That's probably to be expected, right? It's not all good times in college or in life in general, but there's a significant number who would describe themselves as depressed or even hopeless. Still feel like you're alone? Here's what I want you to take away from this. Number 1, if you're struggling, you're definitely not alone at any given time. I can ask the same questionnaire at any given time in the semester. The first time I asked it was to one of my classes 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, during the second week of classes. And it looked very similar to this. Stressed out, anxious, and mood somewhere around the middle to the right. Okay, 2 weeks into the semester. I can ask any group on campus, any time of the semester, and these are the similar results that I see. Here's the point, you're not alone. Do you believe me? Are you starting to see the reality of this in just one group of Point Loma kids? The other thing I want you to understand is that if you're doing well right now, and I really pray and hope that you are, there may be times where you're on a downswing, okay? Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 10 years from now, I don't know. But when you're on that downswing, remember that guy whose talk you went to and you ate popcorn and played with clickers. And you're like, I have no clue who he was or what that was all about, except I remember that I definitely was not alone in these struggles. And find some encouragement in that and take some steps to improve that health. Work on self-care, see a professional, whatever it is you need to do, because you don't have to stay stuck there. You do not have to stay stuck there. All right. There is one more thing I want to do, and then I'm going to have you guys talk to each other for a few minutes. We just looked at a sample of Loma kids, right? And we looked at how many Loma kids are struggling. And I've heard some people say, oh, Loma's so much harder than other colleges. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I've only taught here before, I've done very little at other universities. But I've had students say, oh, the workload's too high, we're taking too many classes, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, let's take a look at some data that are published from tens of thousands of college students in Canada and the United States. Okay, one huge study, tens of thousands, almost 100,000 students, snapshot similar types questions, okay? So let's take a look then at what we know from these kinds of studies from college students. In one study, they were asked to select words that described where they were at right then and there, and the study was given all throughout the semester. So it wasn't just during midterms or finals, it was at any point. And 80% of the students, out of nearly 100,000 students, chose the word overwhelmed to describe where they were at. They chose the word overwhelmed. What do you think? Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt that? You're like just completely spilling over way more than you feel like you can handle. You're totally in over your head, not sure how any of it's going to get done. You're not alone. At any given time, 80% of you and your colleagues are feeling that way. Another one, the question was very specific. It said, in the past 2 years, have you felt lonely in college? 70% of the kids said yes. 70% said at some point in the last 2 years, not continuously over 2 years, but at some point in the past 2 years, I felt lonely. That's a tough one to wrap our brains around, because here you are at a small school and you've got 2,000 kids that are roughly your age surrounding you. Right? The argument there is that real community isn't just being in a large crowd. Real community requires lots of good one-on-one interactions, or at least some good one-on-one interactions. Right? To defeat loneliness, we don't need to be in bigger crowds. We need relationships that can bear the burden of our story. You know what I mean by that? Relationships where you could tell of something, say something that you're struggling with, and you know it doesn't put that relationship in jeopardy, right? It's the kind of thing you wouldn't say to a brand new friend, right? You guys go out for burritos and your friends introduce you to somebody new, and you just unload your deepest, darkest secrets on that person. You wonder why you haven't heard from her again, right? Our relationships are very complicated, and that you need to build them up so that they can bear the burden of your story before you unload on them. If you've not been vulnerably taking risks and building those relationships, ultimately you feel lonely and you feel like you have nowhere to go, and you are bearing that burden entirely on your own because there's nobody that can bear it with you. So building those relationships is really the antidote to that. But 70%, almost 3 out of 4 said at some point in the past 2 years, they dealt with loneliness. These next two questions I really like. They asked graduating seniors, okay, over these 4 years, did either of these things affect you? Over 4 years, did your grades ever suffer because of anxiety? Half of the students, nearly 100,000 students, half of them said yes, at some point anxiety was so great, my grades dropped because of it. Maybe I was so anxious I couldn't study for an exam. Right? You ever get to that point where you're studying and you're just like, I'm not even getting anything because I'm so distraught right now and frustrated and worked up about this. Okay? Half of your colleagues say they've experienced that too. A similar question, they said, were you ever in your 4 years in college too depressed to function? That often shows up as not able to get out of bed in the morning. can't show up for class. I just don't have what it takes to face the day. A third of all graduating seniors out of this swath of, I like that word swath, I'm going to stick with it. This swath of nearly 100,000 students, a third of them said at some point in college, I was too depressed to even function. So no matter where you're at, no matter what it is you're struggling with, if you're at the top of the crest and things are great, or you're down here in the bottom or somewhere in between, understand that what you're experiencing is not unusual for where you guys are at. And we, faculty, staff, administrators, we get it. We really do. We don't always show that, we load more stuff on you, surprise quizzes, and hey, here's some new homework I didn't tell you about. And, right? We do all these horrible things to you. And we add to all that stress. But we really do understand what it is that you guys are going through. I want you to know that there are resources, even just here at PLNU. You are more resourced now in college than you have ever been or ever will be again. Take advantage of them. When you get out into the working world, most of these resources are much harder to find. Even though there are all these resources, though, you have to take the initiative to access them. If you don't, nobody's going to bring these resources to you. You have to take that step and say, you know what? I'm sick of feeling overwhelmed. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm going to talk to somebody who can help me figure this out. Right? Sometimes that's all you have to do. It's just a simple surrender like that, rather than I'm going to figure this out on my own. We have a wellness center. You guys know that. Wellness centers for more than just Tylenol and Band-Aids. Wellness center also has therapists on staff. Now, they're not called therapists because there's stigma there, but these are licensed therapists. They're called life skills coaches, which is fantastic, right? And that's really what a therapist is anyway, helping you process life and come out of your struggles stronger rather than beaten and defeated. You've already paid for a bunch of sessions through your tuition. You might as well go. Even you're like, hey, I don't have anything wrong, but I just want to get my money's worth. So just make an appointment. See what happens. It's pretty remarkable what can happen. If you're a freshman, you get 8. And then apparently the university thinks that stress goes down after that because you only get 6 per year after that. Never quite understood. I always thought it should go up instead of down. But anyway, you get the idea. I say take advantage of it. I don't know if you guys know this, but our psych department offers a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And you're thinking, well, how does that affect me? Well, as part of the training, they offer very low-cost therapy under the guidance of Dr. Dan Jenkins. He oversees every bit of it. It's very, very inexpensive for students, like $5 or $10 a session, which is next to nothing. And so if you feel like I just need somebody to talk to you, I just need somebody to share this burden with me and get this off my chest, not ready to talk to my parents about it, not ready to talk to my friends about it, email Dr. Jenkins and say, hey, some dude told me that I could talk to you about this, and he will give you all the information you need about that support system. But it's a fabulous resource only for you and only for while you're here. But wait, there's more. Your RAs and your RDs. Now, most of them aren't therapists unless you're in Flex, because Bucky's a therapist. But other than Bucky, right? The rest of them are just really good people who really love students and are good listeners, right? And they can help to bear some of that burden with you. Talk to them. Sometimes they'll point you in another direction. Sometimes just talking to them is all you'd need. And you're like, hey, I got this off my chest. I feel like I'm good to go for a little bit now. I got a little bit of support. Maybe they'll say, hey, you need more than just talking to me. Please go check in over at Wellness Center and make an appointment to talk to one of the pros. But your RAs and your RDs are wonderful resources. Your friends, but like we talked about, you've got to build up those friendships and build into those friendships so they can bear the weight of whatever it is you're struggling with. Your professors, most of us are more than happy to at least talk with you or listen to you, right? We're not, unless you're in the psych department, we're not licensed to do much, but we can be here to support you guys through this whole process. Your family, if you have good relationships at home, maybe you're still connected with your pastor. There's a new PLNU mental health club. Eric Liu, his email is elou492 if you want to send him a note and say, hey, what's the deal with that? They've just started a few weeks ago, and it's a group of students that want to get together and talk about this stuff and not remain silent about it, where they're struggling and how they're struggling and what kind of support they need. And then any healthcare plan is going to have some kind of a psych component to it. And as 18 or older adults that you guys are, you don't have to go through your parents. And in the state of California, at least, you don't have to go get a referral through your GP. You just self-refer. So you would literally Go to Blue Cross Blue Shield or whoever your insurance is through. You find the psych hotline. You call it up. This is not just for suicidal people. You call it up and say, hey, I'm a college student. I'm struggling. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I've been really down and depressed. I just need somebody to talk to. And they will set things up for you just like that. It's as easy as that. So many resources available to you guys. Now, one of the reasons that Dr. Cordero asked me to talk to you guys specifically, other than the fact that I have my own story to share with you, is that I've been trying to build up some resources for you as well. So last fall, so a year ago, I was on sabbatical. You guys know what sabbatical is? It's like every 7 years, professors have the ability to take a semester away from the classroom and focus on rejuvenation and some projects that maybe are getting left behind, that kind of thing. And so during my sabbatical, I built a website, okay? And because I'm a narcissist, I named it after myself. And actually, I'm not even sure I should tell you this. The reason I used my full name, David Edward Cummings, the only person that would ever say that was my mom when she was mad at me. And so there's like this fear in me to put that name out there. Don't go look this up, but there's a dude named Dave Cummings or David Cummings that's a porn star, and he owns all the other websites. It's horrible. I found that out the hard way. You don't even want to know. Just believe me and don't go to those other sites. But if you want to check out my site, davidedwardcummings.com, I've been putting resources into this site for students, for faculty, and for the church. So some things you'd find on this. There's some video blogs, some video messages on there. There are a couple written blog posts by guest bloggers. Made for More is actually a 6-session video-based Bible study that I put together with my church's help. That each session has a 10-minute teaching video, and there's a full workbook that dives into scripture on various topics associated with our mental and emotional health. It's all free and it's all up there. So you can do it on your own, or if you're in a small group or want to get a couple of friends together and go through it together, it's all there for download for free availability. And then don't laugh at me, but I am trying podcasting right now. So the Soul Care podcast, I've got the first couple linked there. If you go to iTunes or any of those indexes, you can just type in my full name, put David Edward Cummings, and what's called the Soul Care podcast will show up. And there are 7 or 8 episodes to it right now. And it's just me blabbing on like I'm doing now about things of interest to lots of us having to do with our mental and emotional health and ways that we take care of ourselves. While you guys are having this next conversation I'm going to have you do, I'm going to pass around a mailing list sign-up sheet that's equivalent to this subscribe button here. Just pass it by if you're not interested. I won't take offense. I won't even look at what names are on here. So only if you're interested. But once a week, I send out a very short mailer, like a paragraph, like something you can read in 30 seconds on your phone, that's intended to just encourage you on this journey and just kind of keep the conversation going. That's really how I see it. But if you would like to be added to that list, put your name and your email address very clearly on there. And if after a couple weeks you're like, wow, this guy's weird, just click unsubscribe and you'll never hear from me again unless you have to take a class from me. You'll never get any more emails. But if it interests you, go ahead and sign up and I'll make sure your names are added to the list, and then check it out. See if it helps you and encourages you through your college journey. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and what I want you guys to do during these 10 minutes is I want you to talk to a couple other people around you. I don't want you to share your deepest, darkest secrets. Talk to somebody other than the person you talked to when I had my technical hiccup here. So get at least 2 other people together and share good coping skills. And I'm going to ask you to actually share them with the whole class. So I want to hear some good, healthy coping skills. Cookies do not count, okay? Skipping class usually doesn't count, though maybe sometimes. Talk about this. What works for you for processing stress and trying to stay mentally healthy? Go ahead and talk for a few minutes about that. Say it again. One had 65, one had 64. Yes, you can. Of course. Where does it go? In here? There you go. You're welcome.
I got to meet all the girls.
I got back and I was like, where is everybody? And I texted again and I was like, did you guys go down to Young Garden? And she's like, oh yeah. And I was like, so then I walked out. But that's really fun. They got
All right, let me get your attention back again. Let me get your attention back again. In these last few minutes that we have, I want to hear some of the coping skills, the positive ones, that you guys use to kind of manage your stress. So which group wants to start? Somebody raise your hand. Okay, let's listen up if you can. Nice and loud, Emily.
we talked about exercising again.
Okay.
Sharing with friends.
Okay.
And also sleeping. But that's not necessarily always the best, but sometimes.
It definitely can be. So I know college is like the toughest time of life to manage your sleep and get enough sleep. You can handle so much more when you're rested. You really can. Wait till like you grow up and have babies. You'll realize that you go for months without sleeping and the world falls apart on you, okay? I'm not kidding you. When you get enough sleep, you can handle just about anything life can throw at you. I'm really glad you added that one to the list we had. Let me see another hand. I'll just start calling on you because I know most of you. So what do you got?
We said cleaning, exercising, and journaling.
Cleaning. So we're hearing exercising a lot. Cleaning's interesting. For some people, like I said earlier, just getting busy with your hands, doing something tactile can be really, really helpful. Journaling is cool because journaling is a way of sharing and articulating what you're struggling with without the pressure of sharing it with another person that maybe can or cannot bear that burden with you. Very good. I saw another hand up. You know I did. What do you got?
Listening to another person's struggle with stress.
Oh, so being able to relate to another person who's also struggling with stress, that can be really helpful to really, really believe you're not alone. You've probably heard that a million times, but you really got to believe it. And maybe hearing somebody else talking about how much they're struggling in one way or another is a good way to do that. I like it. Give me a couple more. What haven't we heard yet? We've heard exercise like 4 times. Yeah.
Like volunteering or serving.
Ah, okay, so getting out of yourself, basically. Very good. I like that. Volunteering and serving. Yeah.
I was thinking about music.
Yeah.
I think that's a good escape.
Listening or playing? Listening, yeah. You don't play, okay. Listening to music for sure can be really, really helpful for the brain in general. And there's lots of studies that show what music does to our brain for calming it, like the whole calming the wild beast kind of idea. Playing music is an additional level because then your mind and your body are engaged in the process as well. So you're grounding at the same time. Really good one. Did you have one?
I was going to say prayer with music.
Yeah, prayer and worship. I mean, the 3 most fundamental disciplines of a Christian are going to be prayer, worship, and Bible study. There's no reason we shouldn't be turning to God in all these tough times as well, because He's designed us to need Him and to be filled with Him. I really like that. Thank you. Jimmy?
You can say eating right.
Eating right. Not just eating, not cookies. Darn. Okay, so eating right. So getting enough sleep. Wow, did your mom tell you this stuff when you went to college? Getting enough sleep, eating right. It turns out, and exercise. Okay, great. Thanks, Mom. Right? No, your mom did not call me and tell me to get those in. It's true, right? You can handle so much more in life when you're eating right, exercising, and getting enough sleep. I saw another hand. Yes?
Being outside.
Being outside. Okay, again, lots of good studies that show that connecting with nature, we're actually designed to connect with nature. And some of you are like, no, not me. I'm a mall person all the way. My phone and the mall are all I need. No, it's really not true. You might like those things, but God has designed you to be in connection with nature, and there's a lot of healing. Remember what King David said, right? King David said that God makes him lie down in green pastures and restores his soul. Some pretty incredible, powerful stuff, and we're really designed to find that soul restoration in the green pastures that he gives to us. Give me 2 or 3 more. Come on. Yes, Joe.
Can the old person add something?
Please tell us.
He is kind of being mindful, being present.
Yeah.
And intentionally thankful, looking for things to thank God for that are happening. Maybe little teeny tiny things.
Okay, so gratitude. So cultivating a heart of gratitude rather than a heart that is constantly replaying the struggles. You ever do that, like in your head? You're just playing them again and again and again. You're like, why do I keep telling myself this? The first time was enough, but you keep telling yourself these things. Really cultivating a heart of gratitude. And then mindfulness, you guys heard that term? It's a real popular term right now. It's similar to the idea of being grounded, but having your attention in the moment. It's one of the things we all struggle with cell phones now, is that it takes our attention into a world that isn't quite real. It's partly real, but not quite real. You can be in your phone, even in conversation, and be anywhere physically and lose track of where you're at physically. Being mindful is all about putting that away if you can. It's hard to do. And being present in the moment right then and there, not distracted, not pulled in different directions. I really appreciate that, Joe. One more. Who's got one more that we haven't heard yet? What do you got?
Crying.
Crying. Guys, are you listening? Write that down. Go ahead.
Getting just looking up and just being by yourself and just letting go.
Yes.
And being able to feel everything.
Yeah.
Even just being okay, I got it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about giving yourself permission to feel those emotions, even if they're hard and painful and difficult emotions, aren't they? Remember I said when I told my story, I'm not very self-aware. I'm learning to be more self-aware. I'm not great at letting myself feel difficult things. So during my 10 years where things were hard for me, I lost a family member and a close friend to death. And I didn't let myself really process that and feel it. I didn't cry for either of them. And that's part of that whole lack of awareness and lack of self-awareness. And it's so powerful, isn't it? To be able to just let yourself feel it and get it all out. It's so powerful. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, we are out of time. If you need something signed for your extra credit, let me know. Make sure you've signed in on the sheet. Make sure your clickers get turned in. Do not keep my clickers. You will get me in so much trouble. And I will stick around and answer questions or chat with anybody that wants to talk right now. I have time.